because this is one of the things people ask, why is this? Robert Frost wrote a poem. He said, I turned to talk to God. I turned to talk to God about the world's despair. Right? I turned to talk to God about the world's despair. And to make bad matters worse, I found God wasn't there. Right? God turned to talk to me. Don't anybody laugh. And God found I wasn't there. At least not more than half. And that's a beautiful statement. Because people ask, how can God let this happen? And one of the most interesting things about atheists is some atheists deny God because their opinion of God is so high. Because if you ask them, why don't you believe in God? How could I believe in a God that would allow a world like this? With all this suffering. It's husn al-dhan. Their good opinion of God has led them to believe. But see, the real question is that where are the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made with this free will, with this incredible knowledge, with this technology, with all these abilities? How do they let these things happen? Not how does God let these things happen. How do people here let that? Because God has every right to ask us the same question. He has every right to ask us the same question. How can you rape a little child? I gave you reasoning. I gave you power. I gave you knowledge. I gave you will. I gave you the ability to speak. I gave you the ability to control your appetite, and you do this? So that's the real question. It's not where is God? It's where are the people that God created to be stewards? That's the real question. And that's the problem with modern man, is that he's asking where God is, but God's asking where we are. People say God's not listening to us. We're not listening to God, people. He's told us what to do. He sent revelations. لا تفسدوا في الأرض. Don't sow corruption in the earth. بعد إصلاحها. I made this world perfect for you. I gave you perfect mizan. ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان. I put a perfect balance in the world, and in order that you not transgress the balance. I left it perfect for you. Now we know all the ecology. We have all these scientists that tell us how everything's perfectly balanced. If you kill all the spiders with your insecticides, then there's the flies take over. Because the spiders are controlling all the flies. When I was in Mauritania, I was in the middle of the desert, and I met a man from England. It was an amazing thing. We arrived, and this was the middle of nowhere. We were on the way to Marab al-Hajj, which to them it's somewhere. But for us, it's nowhere. And we arrived, and I was wearing a turban, and I had a dara'an. And we came down. I was with Mauritanians. And he was in a tent with net. This is a true story. He had a little table up, and he had a tea set with like china. I mean, this is out in the middle of the desert. And he was an Englishman having his tea. And he had some Mauritanian servants, there. So I came in and I said, I didn't say, what ho? What ho, old bean? I said, how you doing? He said, oh, come join me. So I came in, I sat down. He said, so are you studying the natives? This is a true story. I couldn't make this stuff up. And I said to him, actually, I came to study you. He was like, I said, what are you doing out here? He said, I'm studying the lizards. And I said, really, what? And then he explained that he was on a UN project because the insecticides in Senegal that were being used were destroying the lizard population. And that was affecting the ecology. because the lizards eat a lot of the insects. So it was creating imbalances, and they were measuring to see how far it had gone. It's an amazing thing that these people do. But the point is that everything is in balance. We can measure these things because there's supposed to be so many lizards per square, and they can measure these things now. How many there are supposed to be. And if those start diminishing, then the other things that are kept in check by them get out of control. Because everything is serving a purpose. Everything. Everything. So it's this is the real question. Allah has every right to ask us. لا يسأل عما يفعل. He's not asked about what he did. وهم يسألون. But they're going to be asked. And that's the real question. Is not how does God let these things happen. It's how do we, with all of our ability, the intellect, the will. People, we go to the moon. We have satellites around this planet. We can take a phone and call right now anywhere in the world, and somebody who has that cell phone can pick it up, and we can talk and communicate instantaneously. And yet there's people starving. There are people right now dying of hunger. It's insane. Man is completely stark raving mad. It's a mad situation. So that's the real question. Don't look with a morbid heart. Because the people that look and question God, their hearts are diseased. The people, and there's a famous story of Dhunun al-Masri. When there was a plague in Egypt, and he was wondering, because he saw children, because in وَقَوْلُهُمْ إِنَّ الصَّلَحَ وَاجِبُ وَعَلَيْهِ زُورٌ مَا عَلَيْهِ وَاجِبُ أَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَامُهُ الْأَطْفَالَ وَشِبْهَهُ فَحَذَرَ الْمِحَالَ. Imam al-Laqani says that those who say that Allah has to do only what is good for His creation are liars. Haven't you seen how children suffer in the world? So children do suffer. Even children suffer physical evils, not moral evils, like rape or incest or pedophilia. Those are moral evils. But they suffer physical evils, like the shar of cancer. But one of the things you'll note about children, and anybody who's a physician, right? Here, anybody who's a physician, if you go to a children's cancer ward, you will never find children asking why this is happening to them. Wallahi. They won't do it. An 8-year-old child that gets afflicted with some disease, the parents will be saying, why is this happening to my child? The child won't ask why. Because they're in submission. To them, it's not a question. And that insight, I got that insight from a Frenchman who wrote a book called And Then There Was Light. A very interesting man. He worked for the French resistance during the Nazi occupation of France. He was blinded when he was a child. But in the first chapter of his book, he said he always was grateful to God that God took away his sight when he was a child. Because he said children never question God's judgments. It's only adults that do those. It's only the adults that question. Because children are in that fitra state. So that's what he's saying, that if you look with a diseased heart, and then you look, because in his delusion, right? In his waham, in his delusion, he seeks a secret concealed in the unseen, only to end up in whatever he says concerning a wicked forger of lies. He ends up like, people like Dawkins, and in our time, Hitchens, Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, George Carlin, Bill Maher, people that make fun of religion, people that make fun of God, and it's a proof of God's hilm, that He is Halim, that He allows these people to eat, to drink, He keeps their temperature at 98.6 like everybody else. It's amazing rahmah. The rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But those are what these people do. They because their hearts are diseased, that's all they can see is disease.